Watch this dramatic video that I posted on Twitter, and then we'll talk about it.
I don't know anything about user interface design, so maybe I'm completely off base here, but the new iPhone X just seems idiotic. Instead of pressing the bottom of the screen like a home button like we've done for the last 10 years, and like you still do on their other new phones, you have to swipe up. Swiping up on these phones and on every other phone gets you to Control Center. But on here, it takes you to the home screen. To go to Control Center, you gotta swipe down from the top right. What? On this phone, swiping down from the top right takes you to the Notification Center, which you can only do from the top left. It just seems silly. For the last 10 years, they've told us this is a home button. This area is a home button. With the iPhone 7, look at this. This is a button, right? So it's not physically moving, it's pressure sensitive, but it still simulates a home button press. They have this wonderful 3D touch engine that they've had for the last several years that's better than everything on the market. Why not use this, your pressure sensitive screen, to simulate a home button press? Just push that hard and it takes you back to the home button. You can still swipe up for Control Center, you can still swipe down for notifications. You remain parity in your whole life. It doesn't make any sense.
Based on the number of likes and retweets that this thing got, I'm not the only person thinking this. Now, let me clarify for those of you that are still a tad confused. I'm not suggesting that Apple should have gone with a virtual home button like a few sites had rumored for iPhone X. That's ugly and it's a waste of space. No. Do you see that little nub that Apple put at the bottom of the iPhone X screen? I propose that when you 3D touch that area, it simulates a home button press. Basically, the Galaxy S8 implements this perfectly. I can still tap content at the very bottom of the screen, but as soon as I hard press, I go home. You don't lose any screen real estate and you don't mess with the tried and true formula of the home button. Honestly, when Apple moved to iPhone 7 and moved away from a physical clicking button, I thought this is where they were going. Trying to retrain people that have made a habit out of the home button for the last 10 years seems silly, especially when it's just for the sake of change. A tiny 3D touch home button area could have allowed everything to stay the same. One press, you go to the springboard. Two presses, you get to the multitask app switcher. And a long press takes you to Siri. Now, I'll explain why I think Apple's method is dumb for several reasons in just a second, but most people who tweeted at me to disagree said, do you really think Apple didn't try this? Do you really think they don't have focus groups? That was mean. I'm sure you didn't say it like that. I'm sure you're lovely people. I apologize. Of course Apple does. They're a multi-billion-dollar company. There are entire departments filled with dozens of people at Apple whose entire career is to study the apex between profit maximization and user experience. I mean, I'm just some college-aged numbskull with a YouTube channel. But don't think for a second that Apple is infallible or that they don't make mistakes or that they don't do stupid stuff for the sake of marketing. Do you remember the third generation iPod Shuffle? Yeah, the one with no buttons? In an attempt to make this sexy, tiny little music player, they removed all of the buttons and put them onto the included headphones. If you wanted to use your own headphones, which you probably did because those ones sucked, you'd have to buy your own dongle. To add buttons to your iPod. Without a dongle, the iPod didn't even work. It completely ruined the user experience, and it was all because Apple wanted a sexy little product that looked amazing, that was tiny in their advertisements. And guess what? People hated it, and they reverted to the bigger iPod Shuffle with buttons on it for the next generation. They make mistakes. Now, I'm not saying that iPhone X is the next third generation iPod Shuffle. It's going to be a success, and I'm very excited to own one. However, this same principle of marketing over usability applies. When the iPhone 6s came out, there were only 2 advertisements that specifically highlighted 3D touch, despite it being the single biggest new feature of the iPhone. They stopped advertising 3D touch and shifted ads to hands-free Siri, which wasn't even exclusive to the iPhone 6s. Why did they do this? Well, because it was hard to show people on TV the difference between a firm press and a tap. You have to try this 3D touch engine to realize how cool it is. It's way easier to show swipes on TV than it is to show a pressure-sensitive screen. And that's evidence in the iPhone X. Swiping around the new iPhone X UI in the commercials looks fun and cool and new and efficient and different. And it makes you feel like you need it, even though it provides a worse user experience. Now you may be thinking, okay, you're being dramatic. Swiping up on the phone to go home is not hard. In fact, it might even be faster than a home button press. And you know what? You're probably right. The home gesture isn't really the problem. It actually reminds me a lot of the late Palm's WebOS, which basically invented many modern creature comforts that we enjoy on both iOS and Android. Now, the problem is not really with the home button, it's the multitasking and control center, which is messed up because of the home button. In The Verge's hands-on coverage of iPhone X, Nilay Patel fuddled around with the multitasking on his hands-on video. The app switcher requires you to swipe up and then hold it to enter the app switcher mode, which seems a lot slower than just a double home button press. The most annoying problem, however, is Control Center, which I don't know about you, but I use all the time. With this new big screen and a tall body, you can't reach it with one hand. Even Marques Brownlee's enormous hand looks like it would struggle reaching the top of the status bar without shimmying his grip up the phone or without needing to use a second hand. Now, Android manufacturers have learned this, and most of them allow you to pull down the notification shade when you're on the home screen without needing to reach to the very, very tippy top of the device. Lastly, a few niggles. Siri on iPhone X requires you to hold the lock screen button, which again requires you to change your grip from its natural position. More importantly though, we also lose parity across iOS devices. Accessing Control Center is now different on the iPad than it is from the iPhone 7. Which is the same as the new iPhone 8, but is different from the new iPhone X. It's becoming fragmented. So I said on Twitter, sure, Apple, if you want to use this new gesture-based system, fine, but change it on every iOS 11 device, so at least they're the same. To which many of you responded, well, why would they go to a gesture-based system when the other devices have a better home button? And that's exactly my point. Apple isn't wrong, and I'm not right. It's just an opinion, and I would love to hear yours. Am I spot on? Am I way off base? Let's talk about it civilly in the comments section down below. If you like this video, be sure to give it a like. If you think I'm a big bumbling idiot, that other button seems to work okay too. Get subscribed for more awesome tech videos like these. But as always, stay snazzy. See you later, folks.